Good afternoon. For those of us joining from Europe, thank you so much for joining us for this very exciting webinar about the Women's Empowerment Principles, a framework to empower women in the workplace, marketplace, and community. We're very happy to have you all joining us today, and we've got some fantastic speakers lined up to share with us about how the Women's Empowerment Principles have transformed the workplace, the marketplace, and community. My name is Stephanie Day, and I'm the National Coordinator for the We Empower program. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada. And we are very excited to have Dr. Terri Cooper from Deloitte, who will join Anna Falth, our Senior Program Manager, for a Fireside Chat. And then we will have a panel session with a series of women's business associations who can share with us how the Women's Empowerment Principles play a major role in the work they're doing to advance gender equality. For those of you who are still getting familiar with the Women's Empowerment Principles, basically they were set up in 2010, and they serve as a guide for businesses on how to empower women. Anna Falth, who will join us and moderate, can share a bit more about that as we get in. Because of time, I will get straight to our opening remarks. And I think we will start with Grazia. Grazia is joining us from the Women's Entrepreneurship platform, and she currently is the chairwoman. Grazia, over to you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to all my colleagues and friends. I would like first to thank you, Stephanie and Nancy, for organizing this so interesting webinar for us, for all the category of women entrepreneurs all around the world. And I would like also to thank Anna Falth that will moderating the webinar. As also, I would like to welcome Mrs. Hardeman, who will be speaking after me. And today we are here together, and several of our members as Copa-Cogeca, Deloitte, KAGIDER, to focus on the women's empowerment principles. And the reason why these principles are so important nowadays for our communities, for the organizer, for the organization, to support and promote women entrepreneurs, and for the working women all around the world. The Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which I've been chairing since 2015, support and advocates on behalf of women entrepreneurs. And we have been worked also at the European Parliament in a series of meetings, in a series of events and activities. Also, we have submitted a lot of motions to European Commission towards women. We know that everyone agrees that women are very important and are a driver for the economy and for Europe as a whole. However, women continue to be held back for a variety of reasons, like care, infrastructure, and lack of access to capital. Moreover, we have been all struck by COVID-19, and this has exacerbated inequalities, has heavily impacted our lives and our businesses, in particular the small businesses that are frequently led by women. I'm thinking about restaurants, hotellerie, health and personal care, education, and cleaning. And experts believe that COVID-19 could set gender equality back by decades unless we move together and take action now. So we are so pleased that we can take this moment. I would like to thank Stephanie and Natalie to set up this webinar to reflect on our current situation and consider as an opportunity, a challenge to offer women more opportunity. We need more women representation as well as their participation on the consultative status among policymakers to change and remove barriers to women entrepreneurship, allowing them to take a leading role in the shaping of a new Europe. The faster the policymakers and business leaders act to push the greater gender equality, the bigger the benefits, not just for gender equality, but also for economic development. So we need to act now to remove the barriers and act for to increase the opportunities for women and to create a larger role to our women in the society and in economy. So adopting everybody, if we could adopt all these WEP principles among our most important companies, not only big, but also mid companies, this could be a good start. So I would like to give the floor and welcome Mrs. Hardeman. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grazia. We have some technical issues. Hilde is having some technical difficulties connecting. So in her absence, we will pass over to Karina Valente, who will share welcome remarks on behalf of the European Commission.
Okay, sorry for that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Dear participants, dear Grazia, our thanks to UN Women and the International Labour Organization, and of course the Women Entrepreneurship Platform for organizing this timely webinar. A special thanks to the organization who will share with us today their achievements and perspectives. The pandemic affects us all across the globe. The way to recovery is hard, with many hurdles, especially for women. So we need to do whatever we can to fight discrimination and to empower women to build back better for themselves, for sustainable development, and for a better world. Of course, the European Union walks the talk. The 750 billion euro recovery plan, Next Generation EU, which the European Union has recently adopted. I will start my video, sorry about that. Puts a particular focus on a fair and inclusive recovery for all. Measures of particular pertinence to women, such as fair binding minimum wages, are key, as European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has strongly underlined. The virus makes a strong case for giving all of mankind, not just half of it, true opportunities. The challenge is global, and so must be our response. Clearly, we are stronger together. We draw our long-term cooperation with UN Women and the ILO to boost the economic empowerment of women around the globe. But we need the private sector fully on board. At the heart of our work are the 7 women empowerment principles that guide business on how to promote gender equality and women's empowerment in the workplace, marketplace, and community. Empowered women work wonders, so I'm proud to hear about your successful experience in supporting them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karina, for jumping in. It wouldn't be a webinar without a few technical issues here and there, so thank you for jumping in during the last minute. We do appreciate that, and we really appreciate the support of the European Union, who has been our generous funder for the We Empower program and makes the work that we do possible. With that said, I'll pass over to Anna Falth, our Senior Program Manager and head of the Women's Empowerment Principles Secretariat, so she can take us through a fireside chat with Dr. Terri Cooper from Deloitte.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And I was reflecting back as I heard Grazia was giving her introductory remarks, that we came together because we have something in common. We don't only have the acronym in common with WEP and the WEPs, but I think that was the first thing that struck us. We have a common name, but also we have a common agenda. And we have been working closely for quite some time, even before COVID, where we had invited the Women Entrepreneurship Platform to come to an International Women's Day celebration early in the year. It sounds like decades ago, but it is about 7-8 months ago that we met and had that discussion and interaction between the European platform and the Canadian stakeholders, as well as the US stakeholders. So it was an excellent International Women's Day celebration where we were still ignorant on what was going to hit us. So thanks, Karina, for those remarks in and really putting the focus on women in this pandemic. It is really key. But we have also collaborated through the virtual cafe and the online discussion that we had at the European Institute on Gender Equality's online website, and that led to the advocacy tool. So this is among the different collaboration activities that we are doing together with the Women's Entrepreneurship Platform. And I'm very excited to bring one of the members on board to the conversation today. And we have Terri Cooper, who is the Vice Chair of External Diversity and Inclusion at Deloitte US. And I have a few questions for you, Terri, but just for everyone to know, I had put the link to all the bios in the chat box. So for those that are curious of a deeper introduction, we thought that we go straight into the questions, and you can read Terri's resume on the website in the link that I provided. And for those that came later, maybe we need to repost it again. Stephanie, we might put it so everyone knows. But I'd like to kick off the conversation, Terri, if you could tell us a little bit more, what does it mean to empower women in the workplace? We know the women's empowerment principles cover the workplace, marketplace, and community, but here we're focusing on the workplace. And what is the secret behind creating a culture of inclusion?
Thank you, Anna, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. You know, certainly for us, empowering women in the workplace has been something that we have been embracing since as early as 1992. We were the first professional services firm to actually create our women's initiative. And that is something that has been critically important to us and continues to be a key focus for us as we move forward. And I can't stress how much that is so important right now as we're in the middle of COVID-19. You know, we're really proud that we've been a member of the WEP Leadership and Advisory Group since the development of the Women's Empowerment Principles back in 2010. And everything that we try to do is really embodying those principles. You know, one of the key things for us, and it has been over since 1992 when we established our Women's Initiative, is really we focused on a whole plethora of intensive women's leadership programs, and they've really been designed to help support our women at each phase of their career. So from our campus hires, or actually supporting women on campus, to our experienced hires, to individuals that are promoted and move up through our organization. And those programs are really customized by level so that we can really address the key elements that women need to understand, and where we can provide support around areas of leadership, around their ability to be great at business development, around their own executive presence. Perhaps one of the most important areas is around negotiation, and certainly from the perspective of actually maximizing their strengths and really owning their overall career development. You know, one of the other things that's really important to us, and we've been on this journey again for a very long time, is really around pay equity. And it's something that we constantly visit, because to me, that is one of the most fundamental principles, if we think about empowering women in the workplace, is absolutely to ensure that women are paid equitably for the same role in everything that they're doing. The second part of your question around what's the secret to creating a culture of inclusion, we've really focused over the last 3 or 4 years on what we've referred to as the traits of being an inclusive leader. And it's really trying to emphasize the importance of every individual within Deloitte being aware of the influence that they have and what is the culture that they're developing on their teams, etc. And we very lovingly refer to these traits as being our 6 C's. And they're really around training all of our leaders around their personal commitment to inclusion, their ability to create truly collaborative space. And when we think about that from a woman's perspective, is ensuring that women have an equal voice, that women can actually express their views, that they're able to really bring their authentic self to the table, that our leaders are curious, that they find out, you know, the experiences that individuals have had, and we know with certain women that are likely more quietly spoken, or their culture means that they're not as demonstrative, to actually really understand those differences, embrace them, and we can be truly inclusive. That we actually are cognizant of our bias. We've spent a ton of time around unconscious bias training, and in particular sharing women's stories around the bias that they may experience in the workforce, and actually educating all of our leaders around those challenges. And last but not least is really focusing on courageous conversations. So calling out those bad behaviors, being there to address any of the microaggressions, and really surrounding our women to help them with their overall advancement and development. So, you know, as I said, it's really critically important for us. We're on this journey, not only in the US, but globally, to really drive, representation from the point of view that we can actually reach equity from a representation perspective as well across our entire firm.
Thank you so much, Terri. I think this is brilliant to have those 6 C's. There were 6, right?
Yes.
Did I count them
yes.
right? Because that makes you help remember and remind yourself as a leader what you can do to really foster a culture of inclusion. So in terms of the Women's Empowerment Principle, how have they been able to shape your gender equality journey?
So as I mentioned, you know, certainly one of the key elements that we're 100% focused on is really establishing that high-level corporate leadership for gender equality. So this is basically, it's embedded in our core principles. Our overall global CEO, as well as our CEO here in the US, they're 100% committed to actually driving gender equity. And certainly we track that very, very carefully. And it's not only for us from the point of view of ensuring that we are promoting women, but we're also very focused on ensuring that we have the right representation at a leadership level. So we're really proud of the fact that we have the first female chair of a big professional services company. We also had the first female CEO of a big 4 professional services company here in the US. And right now we have our first ever global female chair for Deloitte internationally. So, but it doesn't stop there. It's ensuring that we have the right representation at within every leadership team, as well as leadership positions overseeing our clients, etc. The second one, which I think as it relates to COVID right now, is really a significant increase in well-being and mental health. You know, I think we all have been challenged. I know I have been challenged personally myself in trying to balance my family responsibilities, caregiving responsibilities, as well as, you know, full-time working. And so one of the things that we have really thought through carefully, we've always had really good benefits as it relates to our women, but we've really sort of broken it down. We've focused more on truly driving flexible and predictable work arrangements, providing additional support as it relates to accessing emergency childcare, additional financial support of $500 for everybody for them to leverage in any way that they need in order to support themselves, as well as actually extending the benefits as it relates to childcare compensation, etc. And so we're constantly looking at ways in which we can continue to support our entire workforce, but we absolutely recognize that the disproportionate burden lands on our female professionals, and really looking for ways in which we can support them in every way we can. And some additional things that we've done there is around a lot of virtual training around how they can look after their own mental health. What are some of the secrets to actually, you know, coping, as well as providing access and ideas around certainly supporting your children, talking to your children at this time, etc. So Anna, there's a whole plethora of different initiatives that we've driven out with this laser focus around really supporting our women in the workforce.
No, thank you so much for sharing that. We actually currently having a call for good practices on what companies have done to support gender equality and women's empowerment during COVID. So we'd love to kind of feature all this wonderful work, because it has
Absolutely.
been a struggle for many women and men, for that matter, hopefully also men, to balance the work and family responsibilities during this time. And I also congratulate you for having managed to get the women up in the leadership positions. It's very low globally. It's, I think, women CEOs is about 6%. And even in my own country, Sweden, where everything else is gender equal, women CEOs are really lagging behind, and I think it's even 6% there. So it is a lot of effort that needs to go into it, and working on both the pipeline and the recruitment strategy. So what steps have Deloitte taken to really support women in the workplace? And you already talked a little bit about how it changed since COVID-19, but have any of those efforts kind of changed?
Yeah, so I think there's two parts to that, Anna. As I shared with you, that we put a lot of effort around how do we provide that additional support as it relates to the burden of trying to balance, or to get at least more balance from a work-life perspective. So that's one dimension, and we're really proud of our efforts there. The second one is obviously our entire, certainly, and I'll talk from a US perspective and from a global perspective. Right now, virtually our entire workforce is working virtually. And so as a result of that, what we have to ensure is that women are not losing that mentorship, that sponsorship, that ability for us to support them, to develop them, to actually continue to augment the skills that are required to actually move into those leadership positions. So we've put an enormous effort around turning all of our programs virtually. So through our learning and development organization, we haven't missed a beat. So when I talked about those leadership development programs that we had in place, and many of those were face-to-face meetings, we've actually pivoted, and all of that is available virtually. We're also continuing to be really focused on our overall sponsorship. And so encouraging our sponsors as well as our sponsorees to really embrace virtual, to really embrace Zoom meetings, and not to actually lose that connectivity. And we continue to, almost on a 6-week basis, we do a lot of pulse surveys across our entire workforce to actually get a feedback on how individuals are coping. Not only coping from the point of view of the sort of the care and the challenges of home life, but also from the point of view of their own personal development with the engagement and how they feel as though they're developing as a leader, so that we can lean in and we can pivot where that's required. So, it's basically, I'm so proud of our team around how they've pivoted. We continue to really be focused to ensure that we don't see an uptick in, say, voluntary attrition as it relates to women, because they just can't cope. So we're monitoring that really carefully and looking for every way that we can actually support, both from the caregiving side as well as their own leadership and development perspective.
Great. Excellent. Thank you so much. I think time is flying, and I think we are moving on to the next segment. We were just checking if Hilde might want to come in, or if she's still having technical problems. We are happy to bring her on board when the technical issues have been resolved. But I think otherwise we'll move into the next segment, where we have great panelists that have a lot of information to share. So thank you so much, Terri, and I hope that we'll see a little bit of your story of the work that you've been doing during the pandemic. But now I'd like to introduce, we have Charlene from WEP, the Women Entrepreneurship Platform. We have Lotta Folkesson from Copa-Cogeca, and we have Aslihan Tekan also from WEP, but also representing KAGIDER, which is an organization also that have been promoting the women's empowerment principles for many years. So I'd like to just start, if you could each introduce yourself. Again, the bios are on the website and the link that we have provided. But if you could introduce yourself and maybe talk a little bit about how women have responded to, in your network, have responded to the COVID-19 crisis, and how your association and your organization is providing additional support to your members in these times of the pandemic. So I'd like to maybe start with Charlene first. You're muted, so.
There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's really great to have this opportunity to have this webinar today and to discuss the topic of women's empowerment as it relates to women at work. I'm with the Women Entrepreneurship Platform, which is based in Brussels. It's an international NGO, and our purpose is to support, represent, and advocate on behalf of women entrepreneurs to European institutions and to the European Parliament. We're also the Secretariat for the Interest Group on Women's Entrepreneurship at the Parliament. And I just wanted to mention before I go forward that Deloitte is a longstanding partner of WEP, and we are very grateful for Deloitte's partnership. Regarding how women are responding to the crisis, it's our observation that women in fact are not a uniform group. We come from a variety of diverse ethnic and cultural backgrounds, and we live and work in communities and environments that are changing all the time, and there's really no one size fits all solution. We each have our own needs. And from what we've read and what we've seen as well, it seems that women are bearing the brunt of the economic fallout of the COVID crisis. They are taking on a greater share of domestic work and childcare. And I've read articles and I've listened to webinars on this topic, and some women in particular are describing the situation as scary and lonely. And there's lots of cases that can be cited for that. And many are concerned that we are turning the clock back on women's equality. For sure, most of us or more of us are working at home, and this is with all of the implications that it implies. And some have called women the default parent in case of managing their work, homeschooling the kids, and kind of keeping everything together. And certainly in the past, women have also had the main responsibility for balancing the work and the family situation. But since the COVID crisis, it's increased even more. And I think, we have to recognize this and try to support women even more in this kind of situation. Also, the fact that, not only do they have to juggle all of these, situations involving their work and their family, but they frequently overlap. So, how many times have I participated in meetings where mom is holding a baby? I can hear children playing in the background. And so it's just very evident. It's now evident. It's now in our face, what women are going through every day. And we see it on the computer screen in front of us. So many women are also having difficulty because they've lost their jobs. And we know that some of the sectors, as Grazia mentioned earlier, that are where women are high employed in these sectors, that they have been hit hard in particular. And also, women who find themselves pregnant, I've heard about these cases where they've lost their job, and it was impossible for them to get meaningful compensation for that because they were working on a freelance basis. They weren't in a contract situation. They weren't in a situation of long-term employment, and they lost their job, and they even lost the right to any compensation. And one case in particular on a recent Guardian webinar or a podcast that I listened to, the woman was finally she found some kind of funding as a disability pension. But I think this highlights the need for women who are, self-employed or entrepreneurs, that we have to look more carefully at the policies and programs that are in place to support them in these difficult times. So I'd like to just pass on the baton to the next speaker at this point. There's a lot more to say, but I would like to keep going.
Thank you, Charlene. I think we'll give the floor to Lotta. Just to give a heads up that after this round, we'll have Lotta, and then we will have Aslihan. And after that, we'll call on Hilde if she can unmute herself at that point. We'll test the technicalities, but over to you, Lotta.
Thank you very much. And first of all, it's a pleasure to join today. And I thank you for the invitation to become a part of this panel. It's a very important topic, and I'm really happy to attend. So that's it. And I'm Lotta Folkesson. I'm a farmer from the northern part of Sweden. I'm engaged in the Federation of the Swedish Farmer, but I'm also the chairwoman of Copa-Cogeca's Women's Committee. And just briefly tell you that Copa-Cogeca represents 22 million farmers in Europe and 22,000 co-ops. So it's a big umbrella organization who work for the European farmers. And the Women's Committee of Copa-Cogeca provides a platform to highlight the challenges faced by women in agriculture and rural areas, as well as ensuring a gender perspective to agricultural policy. And Charlene brought up a lot of the women's role in the household with the elder care, and it's similar, but when it comes to the COVID-19 in Europe, show the resilience of our primary producers. Supply on food was able to reach consumers with a lot of hard work being done behind the scenes to ensure that. And it, the farms also need inputs, and it was. When this pandemic come, it was really scary if the inputs to the farms should reach the farms. And then, like other female entrepreneurs, many rural women were saw their supply chains disappear. Those that relied on selling at farmers markets and the local restaurants basically shut down overnight. The multifunctional agriculture activities that are often driven by women and support female entrepreneurship was severely affected. In some cases, the lack of seasonal workers being available to work on farms also meant that women had to take on the work and make things happen on the farms. And then we have different perspective from different countries, and I can share from Sweden, who tackled the pandemic not in the same way like the rest of the Europe, and we had no shutdowns. And since Europe was shut down, the Swedish people didn't go on vacation in the southern part of Europe. They choose to go on and visit the agritourism. And so a lot of female entrepreneurs in Sweden have this summer noticed all-time high, really blooming businesses, because the consumers in Sweden also from a sudden was see the value of having Swedish small scale food producers, and also put the value on to the Swedish farmers. So it gave them great opportunities to raise and to have this consumers coming instead of going to other places in Europe. And then we have some examples from Spain. FADEMUR, the Federation of Rural Women Associations, have reinforced their programs to help rural Spanish women to find a job or start a business in the past. The program has aimed to empower the employability through through training and work placements in line with COVID-related restrictions. They adapted the initial program to provide the online courses and activities. And COVID has been and continues to be a challenging time for all. For our members, this has meant ensuring adequate supply and safe nutritional food to consumers. We continue to support our members through collecting data of the impact of COVID and to their sectors, ensuring this is communicated to officials in the Commission, Council and European Parliament to ensure that necessary instruments are available and implemented in order to support our members and those affected. All through women farmers and women working in rural areas face similar challenges and barriers to women in urban areas. Part of our work is to highlight the further difficulties due to the specifics. During the last few months, we have put together our reflections on gender equality in relation to rural women. This is forming our vision towards supporting women in rural areas and the way in which EU policies can and need to further support women to fulfill their potential. So we haven't turned in, we have just used other tools to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Lotta, and also congratulations. You are the latest signatory for the Women's Empowerment Principles. So the application have just been approved, and I think we are kicking off your journey with the Women's Empowerment Principles today as well. So maybe we can hear a little bit more about what you have in the plans in a moment. But for now, I'd like Aslihan to introduce herself and also talk a little bit about how you have observed women responding to the COVID-19 crisis and what you have been doing to support them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. Hello, everyone. My name is Aslihan Tekan. I'm a lawyer. I'm based in Brussels, representing KAGIDER, Women Entrepreneurs Association of Turkey. And I'm one of the board members of WEP, which my colleague Charlene and Grazia have very well explained to you. So I'm based in Brussels. I'm working with these organizations and different civil society women organizations as well, trying to advocate for our mandates at the EU level. What we have been doing about COVID is a big topic, but I will just try to, try to walk all together. I will try to take you to the same walk with us. Being in Brussels, working with EU institutions, working for those civil society organizations we are trying to empower. Brussels didn't sleep like the old countries we have been living in. We had non-stop Zoom meetings we continue to have. So our work environment changed immediately in the crisis format. And COVID-19 turned out to be something bigger than we have thought it would be. I mean, we knew that it had certain aspects on our health, but it had all the impact on our life in social, economic, health, daily feature, with all aspects. So for my organization and for WEP, I can also say, but for KAGIDER, we have been closely working on WEP's principles since it has been launched. It has been a decade. We are actually also congratulating the existence of WEPs within this crisis momentum. But as KAGIDER, we have been supporting WEPs and widely advocating for WEPs principles in the work environment. And also we are trying to create collaboration with different partners on equal opportunities at workplace. So it has been our mandate since the beginning. And within the COVID-19 crisis, we have tried to reach out to our members with a non-stop, with Zoom meetings or Zoom or virtual meetings that would give access to our members to this panic. In a way, it was a panic environment because we didn't know how to proceed, how to do our actual work. Because honestly speaking, COVID-19 actually focused, not only focused, but actually earthquaked certain sectors directly. Tourism, service sector, many sectors. But they were the first sectors that women were highly represented. Women were highly employed. Women businesses, women entrepreneurs were highly, at the forefront representing the sectors. And those sectors were highly damaged after the COVID-19. And we are trying to make it more clear at the EU level to understand all those institutions as stakeholders, to understand our situation within the sectors where women are represented are mostly affected. COVID-19 has also showed us women at the forefront, cashiers, health workers, doctors. They are also, women are at the forefront fighting with the COVID-19. How do we protect them? How the care system? We have been talking about Charlene, Lotta, everybody have given the examples of work-life balance. So the, so-called policy high-level attitudes from the very important institutions, international and European-wide, have actually been given the case study of COVID-19 so that we can now really seriously talk about how we can implement work-life balance, how we can really talk about daily life realities where women and men should actually share the same burden. How do we talk about this gender pay pension gap? How do we talk about this? And if we talk about who has lost their jobs, who are at the forefront? Again, women. So as my organization and as WEP, we have tried to, as KAGIDER and WEP, we have tried to reach out to our members and all those at the very local level, how they have been tackling their daily struggles with COVID. We have tried to reach out to them, try to be a bridge to the policymakers and to their daily needs. It is tough, it continues, but we are there. We give our support directly, providing them tools like WEPs principles. We have tried to create tools for them and try to bring their voice to the EU institutions, where it is very important right now, like we are discussing MFF. If we don't talk about serious budgetary concerns, how are we going to talk about the real recovery plans reflecting women's needs during and after COVID-19? So I'll just leave this pop-up questions, but I think we will have more turns to discuss in detail, Anna. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I hope we will be successful in letting Hilde on board. As introduced earlier, Hilde is the director and the head of the Service for Foreign Policy Instruments of the European Commission, and also our closest partner for this program. So Hilde, I hope it works now.
Thank you very much, Anna. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I could hear you from the beginning, but I did not manage to get in. So I'm very happy that my colleague Corina read a few or shared with you a number of opening points. Thank you very, very much, all of you, for this very interesting discussion. And I would just like to make a few points on the basis of what I have heard, but also on the basis of what's going on in the European Commission and in Europe at this moment. So clearly we all agree that women are always, have always, I think, over the centuries been juggling many tasks and have in general been the first to be affected when something went wrong. In this COVID crisis, we see that women are taking a lot of the healthcare and hence are also very strongly affected by the illness itself. They have an enormous burden in terms of care in the household, in the family. They are frequently in more precarious positions and are often the first to lose jobs. At the same time, we also see that women face extra hurdles in getting access to the different rebuilding back better funds that are available in different countries. And so in the European Union itself, this whole situation has led to a very decisive reaction led by our president, Ursula von der Leyen, herself a woman, herself, let's say, a mother in a big family. So the European Union has, to start with, looked at possibilities to help member states to make the most of the safety nets that they have. And if these safety nets are not sufficient, to further reinforce them. That is a first element. Secondly, the European Union has decided to put in place a very big investment program, the biggest really that we have seen since the start of the European Union, that should really allow to go for a building back better movement, in which there is attention also for things like skills, education, so not only helping people deal with a difficult situation, but also take new opportunities. And also deal with a number of structural questions. For instance, something that affects women quite strongly is the question of minimum pay in all countries. I also heard the reference to work-life balance, so trying to take a different look at the way in which we combine our different roles in life. This situation with COVID is really helping in a way to look at a number of questions anew, to take a number of very bold decisions, notably on the investment plan and on new policy steps that are taken to accompany this. And what I would like to pass as a strong message to this very, very interesting panel and to all of you, bringing people together from the farming world to enterprises and more generally advocacy organizations. It is very, very important, I believe, that you communicate very clearly about the specific challenges that you see, and then also dare to think very boldly about possible steps forward. Events like the one that we have today, but more generally, the different stakeholder consultations that are being put in place or that are ongoing are a good framework to make your voices heard. And the climate is, in my view, positive to listen to those voices and to try to follow up on them. So on my side, I will definitely report back on the discussion that we are having this afternoon. I would like to thank all of you for the work that you are doing, for the attention that you are paying to these questions. And we will, from our limited perspective as the service that I represent, our focus is on the relations with countries outside the European Union, but also from the perspective of a service of the wider European Commission. We will try to feed in the points that you raise, both in our external work and in the discussion on what we can do at the level of the European Union. With this, I would like to thank you all. I'm very grateful for the moment of time that I have been given now. My thanks again to my colleague Corina for representing our service at the start of this meeting, and thank you all for the great work you are doing. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hilde, and thanks for being persistently trying to fix the technical problems. So thank you very much for these words and for bringing up the recovery plans and how important it is that women are at the table of when decisions are made around the recovery plans, to also make sure that their views are being incorporated into and their needs into the recovery plans. Indeed, this COVID-19 have exposed cracks in our systems, and this is also an opportunity to fix those cracks and not only build as the society that we had before the crisis, but really try to make it better and more sustainable for everyone. We also talk in UN Women about the shadow pandemic, which have left many women in very dire situations where they've been exposed to increased pandemic of domestic violence, which is something that we are also trying to tackle from our side. We have very little time left, actually, but it's so much to talk about. But I have a few more questions. I have one for Charlene related to how the women's empowerment principles can be useful for anyone in attendance here, for both individuals and organizations. And if there's anything else that you'd like to add, considering that we have very few minutes left. And then I have one question for Lotta and one for Aslihan. And then I think we also have a few questions from the floor. So Charlene, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think that the, well, first of all, WEP is a fairly recent signature of the women's empowerment principles, but we are very strongly supporting them. We see a lot of advantages to companies, to organizations of all sizes to sign on. And we think that it helps us see the bigger picture. For example, especially with regard to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And it reminds us, you know, where we're going and what goals we want to achieve. I think that the WEPs also give us role models. And on the WEPs website, there are, you know, stories of inspirational companies led by women and men who are, you know, accomplishing these goals. And so it shows us the way by giving us these role models. And I think it's just very inspirational and informative. I think also, you know, doing something alone is one thing, but doing it together in a community, it makes our voices stronger. And we know that we have friends in the community, and we know that you know, this is more motivational for all of us to be doing something together. We have also very difficult tasks to accomplish. You know, ensuring education and training for women entrepreneurs and access to finance and improve government policies and so on. So if we join forces and work together, we have a lot more chance of succeeding. And I think finally, I think it's great to know that somebody has our back. Say that we have signed on to the Women Empowerment Principles. We have the UN behind us. And I think it gives us a lot of strength. It gives us a lot of power. People sit up and listen to us more carefully when we say that we are a signature of the WEPs. So we are, you know, just so grateful that we are involved in collaborating with UN Women on this topic. And, you know, there's more easily, but I'd like to thank you again and yeah, pass it on to Anna.
Thank you so much, Charlene, for all these good points. I'd like to turn it over to Lotta. And the COVID-19 has really showed the importance of equal access to the internet. What have you seen that the rural women's experience with unequal access to broadband internet? And what solutions have you taken on to tackle this? And what I have observed myself is really the entrepreneurs around me here where I live have really been more successful when they had the internet. So I'm sure it's a critical element in your work. Over to you, Lotta.
Thank you, and it's really important because a lot of especially in the future, both nowadays, but especially in the future, because we have more and more female farmers who will have their websites and sell their producing and promote their products through internet. So and for many, access to the internet is easy. They can take up their phones and search for anything, talk to anyone, and watch or listen whatever they want, whenever they want. But in rural areas, this is not always possible. 47% of rural areas have no access to high-speed broadband, while 12% have no connection at all. And I will give I live in a small village in the north of Sweden, and Sweden is really a developed country, but some days I have no connection and at all, and it makes me big trouble when I have to work with my computer, and I can't even do my bookings because we don't have the internet. So it's really important that we can have the same opportunities as the urban areas when it comes to connection. And as an organization, we have been actively advocate for broadband in rural areas. And now Commission President von der Leyen has addressed the fact that it is unacceptable that 40% of people in rural areas still do not have access to fast broadband connections. Access to broadband has been a pivotal policy objective for Copa-Cogeca, as it often links with other aspects that those who don't live in rural areas take for granted. Rural communities often lack access to childcare, adequate healthcare, and broadband, which ends up disproportionately affecting rural women and impeding their full participation in the workforce. Rural women face a triple divide: digital, rural, and gender. But this doesn't have to be the case. Reports show that through empowering female farmers, they can contribute to boosting rural entrepreneurship, self-employment, and innovation in European agriculture. Digitalization is becoming more and more important in the economy and relevant to the labor market. Digital transformations provide new avenues for the economic empowerment of women and can contribute to greater gender equality. And over the years, Copa-Cogeca have participated in a number of initiatives in order to improve the situation of female farmers and those living in rural areas. This includes through the gender mainstreaming in agriculture policies, such as the Common Agriculture Policies and Rural Development. We support and encourage projects that support research and innovation in rural areas, and those that support female-led entrepreneurs and initiatives. And we have had a project in the Federation of Swedish Farmers between 2012 and 2015, which providing business plans for rural women, providing opportunities to benefit from the innovation, ability, and professional experience that many women possess from other sectors. And in the long-term change attitude and challenges stereotypes towards women as entrepreneurs in rural areas. And I also want to say when it comes to being a WEP signer, I really want to give a Swedish expression translated to English. We used to say, if you are alone, you can do a little, but if you work together and collaborate, you can move rocks. So I'm so happy that we can participate and sign up for WEP's work, because it means a lot when we hook up and speak the same, have the same goals and speak about the same things, even if we are farmers or entrepreneurs in other businesses. So it means a lot of us. So I hope we can move things further, and that we can create a future for. I have a granddaughter. She's now 6 years old, and I hope that the day comes when she will become a female farmer, that she will have the same opportunities as she was born as a boy. So keep up the good work and let us keep and do it together. It means really a lot. So keep up, go on, and I'm happy to contribute from Copa-Cogeca's perspective.
Thank you very much, Lotta. We have one final question for Aslihan about the linkage between COVID-19 and the future of work. How do you see those linkages? And I think it builds a little bit about what Lotta has already talked about. So briefly, because time is up and we need to close. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. As Lotta and before as well, we have mentioned, during COVID-19, we were obliged to work online. As Lotta rightfully mentioned, some women didn't have any access, and they continue not having access to internet, digital circumstances. So even before COVID, we were talking about green transformation, digital transformation, global transformation for everyone, globalization of everything, information. And now with COVID-19, we had realized when we put all our forces at its place, we have certain barriers to overcome. But that's where WEP principles is actually guiding in a way. Well, let me maybe open it before coming to WEPs. So women at the moment, before COVID and still during COVID, they are very much less represented in the digital future. When we talk about future of work, of course we mean digitalization. Of course we mean new ways of working. Of course we mean how we integrate work and life balance into our real life challenges. So with COVID-19, we were forced we were forced to discuss and explore in these topics more closely, but some and many women lost their jobs due to lack of the existing systems, lack of ownership on these areas. But the companies who have already signed WEPs principles were actually going further beyond, protecting their workers. So I think this already gives a, very important light and flashlight to show the importance of WEPs principles if we continue to, include more companies and more small companies as well, SMEs as well, to our pool of network, so that we actually think globally and for the future of work altogether. Women are highly less represented in the digital future. They have less skills. They are less represented in STEM. They are less represented at high level of tech companies. We talk about women on boards in Europe. So right now we are at this launch of a directive. We are working for a directive for the 50% of women on boards. But how about the boards of the tech companies? How about the those who make the applications, mobile applications? How women are represented and how they are actually deciding for the offline and online world is actually are concerned and driven within the same legal framework. We should think about that. If there is violence in our offline life, there is violence at the online life. We have faced harassment online as well during work-life balance, during the work-life challenges and during the COVID-19. So we have actually come up with the challenges that we are facing in our daily life within the digital circumstances. So the importance of Convention of Istanbul Convention to tackle online violence against women and girls is actually triggered for the work-life balance as well. ILO has a convention on violence and harassment at workplace. So there are tools that we can combine and help WEP principles to be transferred into the future of work discussion and try to create a circumstance for digitally empowered women and also who do not have access to digital tools. So future of work should be really put into serious consideration, how we include all and don't leave anyone behind, any woman behind, because they are just living in the rural area. They should not be excluded on the discussion of future of work. So all this technology and life-driven, work-life-driven discussions should include women leadership, women's inclusion, to discussions, but also their problems or the existing problems on their offline life are transferred to the online circumstances, and we should be aware of it, and we should try to develop tools that would help them to be protected from online violence and harassment as well. So this work culture is developing together and all together within the given circumstances, which will most probably not be better, because if we have COVID-19 today, we may have something else tomorrow. But we have already policies that we are trying to develop at the EU level, at the international level. So through WEPs, through the community and marketplace and the workplace tools. So these should not be seen separate. We need to mainstream policymakers, the stakeholders, civil society, women on the rural areas, all together to be part of the same discussion. Otherwise, we may exclude people who are actually at the forefront, trying to survive and trying to, be an economic value to our life. So I will leave it to here. But
what a great transition into what I was planning to say about the two other events that we have this week that are focusing on women in decision making. The one tomorrow is secure a seat at the table. So this is targeting women and giving them some tips and tricks on how to secure the seat at the table, but also looking at some of the questions that come from the participants. Is it about gender parity or gender sensitivity? So it's not only about women driving this agenda alone. We need men with us, and we need everyone to really work on this agenda, being gender sensitive, but diversity gives a better understanding for what is needed. So a company that is more diverse is a company that better understands its consumers, its business partners, and the broader society. So it is not only about women driving this agenda and achieving gender parity for the sake of gender parity, but really to have that inclusive culture of inclusion, etc. There was another question about how women can address this workplace and workplace discrimination. We will have also on Friday another event that we are focusing on women's leadership for gender equality. And this is focusing more on the structural barriers that we have talked about and the how-tos for governments and companies on helping to drive the agenda of women's leadership through board participation that we also heard earlier about the EU directive on women on boards. There was also a question from Jared on assertiveness. And this is a series of learning webinars that we're also having, and we are putting together a learning course that tackles different things to strengthen both for women and men, strengthen yourself and boost yourself, as we say, that focus on confidence, that focus on communication, team building, assertiveness, and all those different things. So that's forthcoming. But I would like to end also with just mentioning the survey that we have out. We are looking for good practices on response from companies to COVID-19. So the link have been shared, and we hope to get many inputs from you. And finally, I'd like to thank everyone. Thank the European Union for allowing us to do this work, and Hilde for being persistently trying to get into the meeting and for really supporting us in that way, and Corina for her stepping into Hilde's role in her opening remarks. Also to everyone that involved, Charlene and Aslihan, Lotta, and everyone, and also the team, Stephanie and Nancy, for having pulled together this excellent webinar. But also, I'd like to thank Terri. She had to leave, but great conversation, and thank you so much, everyone, for your contribution, and Adrian for your support with some of the technical issues. So thanks, everyone, and I hope to see you tomorrow in the securing the seat at the table. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.